All right, so we've talked about the ability to um, use a database. You've created a database of elements, and what I want to show you is the ability to post and get data. And what that means, you've already learned how to post form data using a form. Now remember, all of this still needs a place to save the data. You're using sort of borrowing my database, and we're going to run out of the limits of that pretty quickly. So I just want to introduce these concepts, and then we'll just move on to some cooler HTML5 stuff that you can play around with locally on your data on your browser. But I wanted to show you this because I think it's important to get. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the elements list that you've already created, and I'm going to show you how you can set it up to vote for a user to be able to vote or like something. And you probably can already think about how you can do that and have it save locally, right? You're modifying the array and you're having it save locally. But what we're going to do is we're going to find out how to save it permanently using post and gets. All right. So let's start with where we're going to end up here. I've done a few things. I've taken one of my database tables and I've set it up here. So save work and show web page. This is familiar. This is what we did last lesson. Create the list, right? So I've added one element here, and I've added a vote button. We'll show you how to do that. And now I can click on that vote. You see it changes. That just changes it locally, but it also saves it. So now if I refresh this page, you're going to see, actually you're not going to see. I'll show you why you're not going to see here in a second that that's changed, because it's using the same array, but that information has actually been saved, and I'll show you how that works. All right, so let's just see how this works. So create the list, vote here. I'm going to vote on it, and it actually does save it to the database, and if I click here, get data, it's going to pull up the different elements in an alert. It's also going to show it here. It's going to pull up the different alerts, and you see that I'm bringing new votes as I go. Okay, don't worry about that so much right now. Okay, so what are we doing here? Let's take a look at the code. This is building on the code that you used in the last lesson. You have to get your array, okay, by going to your elements list. If I click that, it's going to open a new page. You go here, right? You have your elements. You can add new ones if you want, and click Show Array, and then copy this and bring it over here and paste it into this to start off with. All right, so that's what you're going to do as a starting point. And you can reuse the code that you did from the last lesson, which is the ability right here, the create list. I've added a few things that we'll go through here, but otherwise it's all the same. Let me show you what I added. I just added a vote button variable right here, and I define it up here, a vote button, and I say button on click, and then it's going to run a function called vote for it, and I want you to do vote for it temporary first. Okay, so vote for it temporary is just going to take the array ID, and it's going to send it to this function here, function vote for it temporary. And what we do is we check on the element of the elements array, which is votes. I've added two elements to the array. I added the ID, this is the database ID, so that we can update it in the database, and I've added a element called votes. Or now that's already there, so you don't have to worry about that. That's just there. I just don't want you to be surprised when it comes in. So what we're going to do with this button is we're going to have it, and I'm going to go through and do this here. So all I want to do first off is I want to create this vote button, right? Button on click, vote for it, and we want to do vote for it temporary. And I'm sending it the element or the array ID right here, and don't worry about vote count yet. Okay, all we want to do first off is have that button there. Okay, so if I click this, it's going to do vote for it temporary, and let's just put here an alert just to see what we're sending it. All right. So save work, show web page, create list, and I click vote, and I'm going to get the alert or the array ID there. If I click this one, I'll get 1. If I click this one, I'll get 2, right? All right. Now what? So we go back to temporary. Now what I want to do is I want to find out how many votes there are currently. So I do elements ID votes, and I'm going to create a variable called current votes, just so we know what those are. And then I added an ID here called enter your name here. All right, so let's just see what happens. Let's do alert. I created a variable called voter, alert voter. So now what I'm going to do is, oops, that's on the wrong one. That's on permanent. So alert voter. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the voter's name and I'm adding it to that field in the votes, in the array, the votes, so it's keeping track of every person's name that voted for this particular thing. And I'm doing that by taking the variable current votes, which starts off with whatever the current value is. I'm doing a plus equals, which remember just adds to it. Current votes plus, and I put a comma here, you'll see why, and the voter name. And then I update that, okay? Current element votes, current votes, create list. So then what it does is it just regenerates that list. Okay, so let's just do that and we'll just see it as we go. Create the list, put my name here, Fraser, and click vote. So you see it takes the array ID, takes its name, all right, but doesn't do anything else. All right, so now we go back, and what I want to do is I want to keep track of how many votes I have. So what I'm going to do here is I want to get a vote count. And how do you do a vote count? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the number of elements that are in votes, and I'm going to use a method. So I'm going to split it based on its commas. So that takes all the elements that are in the votes. So let's say I had Fraser and Tom and Joe, and it's going to split it up into its own array, and that way I can do a count of how many elements are in there, right? So now I'm going to create a new variable called votes, elements, the ID, votes, split based on the comma. I can do it based on whatever I want, but I'm going to use a comma. And then I'm going to create a new variable called vote count, and I'm going to say what's the length of this array. So remember, I just took that and I split it into an array of 3 because there are 3 things in it. So now I have a vote. I'm going to have a vote count of 3, and I want to show that. So now I need to put it in here, and I'm going to say vote count. And remember how when I added it to the array, I create the list over again. So now it's going to update it. All right. So let's take away my alerts. We don't need those anymore. And I click Save Work and Show Web Page, create my list. All right, now I put those in there, right? I put in 3 things, but if I do this, I'm going to say click Vote, and now it's going to change. Oh, well, now that's because I'm putting Jimmy. So let's do that for little Fraser. So you say it votes it up, and if I do it again, it's going to vote again. And this is a little thing that we have to tackle is it counts the comma multiple times, so we just subtract 1. No big deal. All right, looks like I've done something wrong here. Let's see what that is. Okay, I saw what I did here. I did current votes plus equal current votes plus that. And you don't want to do that, right? You want to do current votes and just add to it the comma. So I was just doubling it. All right, so let's refresh this. Save work and show web page, create our list, vote 3. Vote, and I want to put a name in here. All right, so now it's working the way we want. But that's temporary. It's not saving it to the database. And that's what we really want to demonstrate here is the ability to save something to a database. But this is a good thing if you just want to, total something up within the site, you can do that. But let's see how we can make that permanent. And the way we're going to make that permanent, we're going to switch from vote for it temporary, and I've already created something called vote for it permanent. So I'm going to change this to vote for it permanent. And we're doing basically the same